All right, let's get it. This is the 49ers Report. Chase Sr. here with you. Here's what we have cooking up on today's show. Trey Lance looking sharp, day one of minicamp. Kyle Shanahan talked about his relationship with Deebo Samuel and Deebo's relationship with the San Francisco 49ers. We'll get you caught up on everything going down with the Nick Bosa contract talk, and we'll take a look at some minicamp day one studs and duds. But first, make sure you subscribe to the channel by hitting that red sub button down below. 283 people away from 60,000 subs. If you want videos every day on your Niners, make sure you join the faithful family here at Chat Sports. We start off with the most important position of all of sports and one of the more polarizing players going into the 2022 NFL offseason among the entire league. That is Trey Lance. I thought it was interesting what Peter King said earlier this week, that one of the most influential players in the league is Trey Lance going into this upcoming season. And he continues to look really sharp at minicamp, and this is a continuation of how he looked really good throughout OTAs as well. In team activities yesterday, when the media was on hand, Trey Lance looked awesome. 14 of 18 completion to attempts, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, completed nearly 78% of his passes. And he did say after practice he didn't do anything major with his mechanics. A lot of what he did was on his lower half, but I do think that the motion is just a little bit snippier for Trey Lance. And I think because of that, he's more accurate with the football. Now, he also has said that the finger injury that he suffered last year did lend itself to him being inaccurate and off with some of his throws, but in OTAs, Trey Lance was looking good balling out. He also had his sharpest practice session of the entire offseason, according to a lot of accounts throughout the media on Tuesday in day one of minicamp. And now he's starting to throw to some more legitimate weapons on the football field, even though George Kittle didn't practice, Deebo Samuel didn't either. Kyle Shanahan also saying after the practice session, Trey Lance had a really good day, especially in red zone drills. That's somewhat notable. When you get into these red zone drills, you're not running the football because you're not wearing shells, a.k.a. practice pads, right? You're wearing helmets at this point. You're not running the football. So because of that, when you do chuck it, the field gets condensed a little bit. But Trey Lance, he flourished. He looked really good. That is a good sign for him as he continues to develop within Kyle Shanahan's offense. With Trey Lance, you can focus on what the national media is saying. From Colin Cowherd, Emmanuel Acho, Matt Lombardo, Chris Sims, they don't have an opportunity to watch Trey Lance at these practices. So they're going to continue to spew all of these false narratives when it comes to Trey, his development, and say ridiculous things like, I'm being sold something. I don't think that Trey Lance can play. This coaching staff has no confidence in him. You want to focus your energy toward all the negativity? I'm going to focus on what those are saying who are actually on hand when they actually watch Trey Lance up close and personal. And people continue to say that Trey Lance looks really good as a thrower. He's made some slight changes to his mechanics, and he's more accurate with the football, and he's throwing some darts on the practice field. I'm going to focus on what people who are actually watching Trey Lance have to say about him, and not what people in the national media who never watch Trey Lance are actually saying about him. It's honestly kind of weird at this point how people are also rooting for Trey Lance to fail when he seems to be a really likable dude. He's a stand-up guy. When he takes the podium for some of these post-practice press conferences, he's honest. He's unfiltered. He seems as though he has a great personality. He's really mature, and he enjoys chopping it up with the media members. Especially, it's weird when people are rooting for him to fail when he's playing the most important position in all of sports. The San Francisco 49ers' success this upcoming season hinges on whether or not Trey Lance is going to be legit as a starting quarterback. He's 22 years old. He has all the ability in the world. If there's one thing that you can knock him on, it's the fact that he's a little bit raw and inexperienced. But it's really important for him to get all of these postseason, preseason reps right now to work on some of the things that he needs to improve upon. So for those who are rooting for him to fail, that's just a weird flex by you, especially if you root on this football team and you want to see the Niners do well this year and moving ahead into the future. So if you're intrigued by Trey, if you're a fan of number 5, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. If you're not sold on him still, I want you to comment why, come up with your best responses. I'll get to as many responses as I can in the comment section. Next up on the show, is the Deebo Samuel relationship between him and this organization improving? There are some really good signs that are happening right now. Him reporting to mandatory minicamp, Yeah, he doesn't want to get fined, but at least he's partaking in some of these practices to a certain degree and doing some work on the side, but also he's communicating with his teammates, and he has a good relationship with Kyle Shanahan. That goes a long way in trying to figure out the differences between Deebo, his camp, and this organization as they try to work out a contract extension. First up, this is what Trey Lance had to say about his communication and relationship with Deebo Samuel. It's good to see that they talk a lot. That, according to Trey, I don't think he'd lie about it. He has nothing to gain in doing that. I talk to Deebo a ton, even when he's not here, so it's obviously good to have him back. Just his vibe on the field, his energy, him, Trent, and Bosa, when they're in the building, it's a little bit different. It's also a positive sign that Lance and Deebo are just communicating. When Deebo Samuel had made his trade request known, that led to a fury of reports about him not wanting to play with Trey Lance, him not wanting to live in San Francisco, him not liking California. But over the last couple of weeks, he spent a lot of time in California, in the Los Angeles area, as well as in San Francisco. He now reports to 49ers mandatory minicamp, and he's been communicating with the 49ers future signal caller in Trey Lance, trying to develop a relationship there. Speaking of relationships, here's what Kyle Shanahan had to say about his friendship and his relationship with one of the most valuable offensive players in the league. When I think of a relationship with someone, Shanahan said, that has to do with him and me, not statements, not Instagram, not people repeating stuff. It has to do with the words that come out of my mouth to a man and him back to me and nothing else. And that's never been a problem with me and him. Now, you can look at that quote, you can listen to me read it and say, yeah, I'm not really buying what Kyle Shanahan has to say, but by all accounts, Shanahan does have a good relationship with Deebo. And Deebo burst onto the scene last year as one of the most elusive, dynamic, and explosive offensive weapons in the sport. And I've said this time and time again, Deebo, this marriage is way too good for it to lead to a divorce. You have one of the best up-and-coming and young play callers and creative minds in the NFL with Kyle Shanahan. You have an elite cast of characters on the offensive side of the ball. You have studs on the defensive side of the rock, and this team is set up to compete for Super Bowls over the next couple of years, and I think that Trey Lance has all of the ability in the world, and if anything, I think this offense with Trey at quarterback is going to be more dynamic, less predictable, and Trey Lance throwing it and also posing a running threat. And the fact that the 49ers have addressed the running back position back-to-back years in the third round, taking 3 running backs over the last 2 drafts, tells me that they want to find that bell cow. They want to find that consistent running back so that Deebo Samuel can play wide receiver, which reportedly is what he wants to do and get paid as. Last year, I think it was just a necessity with Elijah Mitchell going down, a revolving door at that running back spot for Kyle Shanahan and Mike McDaniel to utilize his skill set and his special ability in the backfield as a running back because they didn't have anybody else to turn to. But by drafting Trey Sermon, Ty Davis-Price, and Elijah Mitchell, you have your stable core of young running backs, which will allow Deebo Samuel to play more out wide as a wide receiver and hopefully get paid as such. Now, as for what Deebo did, Day 1 of minicamp, not much. Sprints on the side of the practice field, and he lifted a little bit. I don't expect him to do anything over the next couple of days. When it comes training camp, I'd like to see him on the field to build that rapport with Trey Lance. Still to come on the show, we're kind of only getting started. You don't want to miss any of it. When will Nick Bosa get paid? We'll get to some of the Nick Bosa contract details as well. Also going to touch on some minicamp studs and duds from day 1. But first, I want to hear from you in the comment section right now. I like turning the clocks back because some of the responses are awesome. A couple weeks ago, I asked you, who is the quarterback when you became a fan of the Niners? And so many people had said John Brody. That's awesome. So with that, I ask you this. Who is your favorite Niner of all time? All time. This is a historic franchise. Let me know in the comment section. I also have a favor to ask. I want you to show the bosses that the Niner gang and the faithful always shows up and shows out. We are 50 people away from 500 Rumble followers, and the bosses are like, Chase, you got to get there as soon as possible. Let's do it with this video. Head to rumble.com/49erstv, and when you get there, make sure you hit that green follow button. Uncensored, raw, and exclusive content sometimes put on the Rumble side of things. Appreciate everybody for helping us get to nearly 60,000 subs right here on YouTube, but we also put content on Rumble as well. Let's get to 500 followers as soon as possible. One of the big looming storylines for the San Francisco 49ers with minicamp underway. When is Nick Bosa going to get a new contract, as he has 2 years left on his rookie deal? With what he did last year and what he's did throughout his entire career up to this point, and with what Aaron Donald got paid, Nick Bosa is setting himself up to be one of the highest paid non-quarterbacks in the National Football League. His rookie year en route to that Super Bowl appearance in 2019 was marvelous. Tears his ACL in year 2 in 2020, then comes back last year and was absolutely phenomenal and downright dominant. 21 tackles for loss, 15.5 sacks. And when you think about the construction of a roster, you got to get quarterback right. And then, in my opinion, you got to get the tackle spots right to protect the quarterback, and then edge rusher, a preeminent position and a position of massive importance when you're trying to build a Super Bowl team. And right now, San Francisco has one of, if not the best edge rushers in the sport, and he deserves to get paid with the work that he's been putting in the lab and what he's been able to bring this defense, and the fact that this guy is just a game breaker. Kyle Shanahan, when asked about the Nick Bosa looming contract extension, saying that the contract extension talks have not started. We haven't been doing that yet with Nick. It's just that that's how both sides are going at it right now, and I'm not too concerned with it. I fully expect, though, Nick Bosa being here for a very long time. Now, a lot of you watching right now are saying, okay, Nick Bosa, Deebo Samuel, drafted in the same draft class back in 2019. Why does Nick Bosa have 2 years left on his deal, and why does Deebo Samuel only have 1? Because Nick Bosa was a first-round pick. So when he got drafted, he signed a 4-year, $33+ million contract, an upfront bonus of $22.5 million. Back several weeks ago, he did have that 5th-year option guaranteed. That is not an option for Deebo Samuel because Bosa is that first-round pick. And by guaranteeing that 5th-year option, Nick Bosa is going to be making a lot of money next year, not in 2022, 2023 salary of $17.8 million. That's why there's more of a rush to get Deebo Samuel paid. Also because he's a second-round pick. He's going into the final year of his rookie contract at $3.9 million in base salary. And with those California taxes, with his rugged and physical style, he doesn't have any financial security as compared to a player like Nick Bosa. That's why Deebo Samuel wants to get paid. That's why he made that trade request be known, because he wants to put pressure on this front office so that he can get long-term financial security. If you want to show some love to the Bear, get into the comment section right now and just comment with a bear emoji. That is Nick Bosa's nickname. I think it'd be absolutely hilarious if I go back into the comment section and I just see like thousands of bear emojis. We have thousands of people who tune into our shows every single day. I want to see how many bears we can get into the comment section to show some love to Nick Bosa. Some minicamp studs and duds. And I'll expand on this in a couple of days as we do minicamp winners and losers, but people who have turned heads and done the opposite with our studs and duds segment right here. Trey Lance continues to play well. I said everything that I needed to say about Trey Lance on today's show. You know who's been playing really well throughout OTAs as well as minicamp? Juwan Jennings. Consistently catching the football. He is always relied upon to make the big play underneath, but also he's been stretching the field a little bit more as compared to years previous. Juwan Jennings on the verge, in my opinion, of having a breakout campaign. Kamoko Toure signed a 1-year deal coming over from the Indianapolis Colts last year, had a career year with Indy with 5.5 sacks. He's been beating dudes on one-on-one drills pretty consistently throughout the offseason. Emmanuel Mosley, after not giving up a touchdown in coverage last year, hasn't gotten beat at all this offseason. As for minicamp duds, Brandon Ayuk continues to struggle with drops. Now, Kyle Shanahan did say that Ayuk and Juwan Jennings had great off seasons and they're playing really well. But when you consistently drop the football, it's a little bit of a concern for me. Danny Gray suffered a hamstring strain, and because of that, missed some practice time last week, is going to miss practice time this week, and most likely next week as well. That is not good for him as a third-round pick who's trying to learn this complex offense, who's also competing with Juwan Jennings for wide receiver 3 snaps. Drake Jackson, also a minicamp dud on one-on-one drills, in team drills as well. He's been going up against the second and third offensive lines. And with his ability, with his pedigree of being a second-round pick, and with the pressure being on him to produce and basically take over for D Ford, up to this point, he's struggled a little bit in some of these team drills. Make sure you give me a follow on Twitter and Instagram at Chase_Senior. It's the same handle on both social media platforms. I want to see how many followers I can pick up on today's show it'd be awesome to interact with you who don't already follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Tweet out all of the latest 49ers news and rumors, all of our shows, some clips from the show as well. And anytime that thoughts are festering inside my brain, I just take to the Twitter streets and I post some videos out there. So give me a follow at Chase_Senior. And as always, thanks for supporting the show and watching us today.